There's two journalists from the San Francisco Chronicle that are facing civil contempt charges right now. I think technically they're in civil contempt, but they're not going to send them in jail until the Ninth Circuit's ruled on their case. So they were able to work out some special deal, which I was not. There's a woman named Sarah Olson who published some sort of an interview on Truth Out's website, and she's been not subpoenaed at this point, but the U.S. Army has said that they're interested in talking to her in court for the court-martial hearing of Lieutenant Watada. There's another journalist from the some hot paper in Honolulu, which I can't recall right now, who's also dealing with that same situation right now. Then beyond that, there was a recent scare with both yourself and Greg Palast, where you shot some stuff of Exxon or something like that in New Orleans, and the next thing you know, there was a criminal complaint filed by Homeland Security. So that's something like 7 journalists who have all been under the gun of these sort of broad investigations, which are nothing more than an attempt to harass journalists and kind of curtail their efforts at covering the news. I mean, we live in a republic that's supposed to have a balance of powers. There's the executive, the legislative, and the judicial. Well, we know what the executive's about. We watch what George Bush's policies are every day. We're pretty aware that the legislative is pretty much aligned with the executive. I mean, they're the same party. They seem to be working for the same ideologies. With the most recent rulings in my case, it's starting to look like the judicial is also married to these two groups. So the balance of powers just went out the window. And when that happens, there's only one check left, and that's the fourth estate or the press. So they've gotten the three groups aligned. Now they're coming after the fourth because we're all that there is to kind of act as a watchdog and keep people aware of what's going on in our country. And it doesn't surprise me that they would do this. It kind of goes back to this quote from Jefferson. I don't know it exactly, and I'll try to get it right this time. But basically, he said, if I were given the choice between having a government and no newspapers, or newspapers and no government, I would not hesitate to choose the latter. So our founding fathers realized how important a free press is. They stipulated explicitly in the First Amendment. I mean, if reporters and the press are just considered part of the free speech of everyday citizens, why mention it explicitly in the First Amendment? My feeling is that they realized that something like this could happen, and they tried to safeguard against it. And now our more conservative judiciary is trying to say, no, there is no First Amendment right for journalists. And this is smack against the face of 49 states plus the District of Columbia, which all have some sort of shield law or common law protections for journalists not having to turn over their unpublished material, not having to out their sources, because they realize how important a free press is. And without having that, we as the media are basically unpaid federal agents without getting to choose to follow that profession. And it also creates this chilling effect. Why would you want to talk to a journalist if you know that he's going to be faced with jail time if he doesn't say that you talked to him? And more importantly, how many journalists are going to feel comfortable talking to you if they know that they're going to be faced with either saying that you talked to them or going to jail? It's a difficult choice to be put with, and not everyone has the luxury of myself where I have a job that I can come back to. I don't have kids. I don't have a wife. I've got a house with rent that I can raise money to cover. Other people aren't in that situation. A lot of journalists have families, and it's pretty difficult to explain to your daughter, I'm going to jail so that you don't have to when you grow up. You know, that's something that we as adults might be able to understand, but try telling that to an 8-year-old. So I'm really fortunate to be young and able to do this, and hopefully it will establish a precedent for journalists through common law protections, and we won't continue to be faced with this horrible situation.